Special welcome to all our listeners. Today, I am very excited to be having a conversation with Johan. But for the sake of introduction, I'm going to call him Professor Johan. He said I shouldn't, go on title, but, it's always nice to recognize, that Prof, you carry these titles because that also comes with authority, doesn't it? So special welcome to the podcast for today, Prof Johan. And I would love you to just tell us a little bit about who you are and just the journey that you have walked.
Well, Sarah, firstly, thank you for the wonderful invite. I've had a sneak peek at most of your recent posts, your videos and recordings. So interesting. So well done. Keep on doing the good work. These are messages and conversations that people should listen to. So yes, so my name is Johan Steyn. Hello, everyone. I live here in Johannesburg in South Africa. I've been in management consulting in technology for most of my career. I've recently finished off a few months with PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I worked in the AI and automation space. And as of the end of June, I've gone through quite a career pivot where I'm now involved with Woxin University in India as an adjunct professor. And I'm also collaborating with Stellenbosch University as a research fellow. And there's a number of other universities that I'm doing talks and webinars with. So there's the academic side, but then there's also the consulting side, the AI strategy, automation strategy kind of work. And to your point, Sarah, a lot of business leaders don't understand this technology still, and I'm sure we'll unpack that. But yes, I'm a freelance consultant. I do some coaching with startups in South Africa, amazing startups. They do technology platforms that they produce are on par or better than what you find in Silicon Valley. Problem is scaling, getting into big corporates to sell these services. So I'm sure we'll touch on that as well. But yes, just passionate about this topic, and in particularly the societal impact. What will happen to our children in the future if we don't regulate this technology? So that is maybe my highest passion, more so than the technology itself, Sarah.
Thank you so much. I would love us to get into the conversation. Artificial intelligence is such a big word, and everybody is talking about AI, and a lot of people actually don't have a full understanding of what it is. So I would like you to just break it down for non-technical people, for laymen that are not in the tech space. When they hear artificial intelligence, what should come to their mind? What is AI?
It is such a good question. You know, what I often do in some of my public talks is I will bring up 3 pictures on the screen, and the one would be of an evil robot like Terminator, red eyes, smoke coming out of the nose. The second picture would be a cute little robot, and the third picture would just be of computer code. And then I ask people, which of these 3 pictures, in your view, most accurately represents AI? And most people will select the evil robot. And the reason is because of what we've seen in Hollywood movies. We are exposed to the hype around this technology. We're going to all lose our jobs. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that somewhat today. And then I say the bottom line is AI is code. It's something that we as humans have created, that we code to do certain things. The technology in itself is neutral and ambivalent. And like any tool humanity's ever created, it can be used for good or for bad. Unfortunately, this is the most powerful technology we've ever created. So the for bad is exponentially bad, but the for good can also be exponentially good. You know, a year and a half ago, my father, who is a smart man, but he's not a technologist, asked me, what is all this AI work I'm doing? And I really struggled to explain it to him. So unless you use the lingo that we often use, AI, ML, IoT, cloud, automation, and then I figured out my own simple little way that I've used in a lot of client conversations. And I normally have 3 pictures on the screen. The one is where I explain, what we do as humans when we do work. And then I explain how AI technology can emulate it. The first one is the fact that we can see an email, read it, we can see an instruction, and in an AI or technology terms, we can call that computer vision or character recognition. We have the ability to execute work based on what we've read. And in technology terms, that's smart automation, or you can speak about robotic process automation. Thirdly, is that we can understand language. When we speak, I can understand the subtlety of what you're saying. Sometimes we mean something else than what we say, these nuances, these sentiments. Natural language understanding or natural language processing or conversational AI or chatbots is already there. And then lastly, the fourth picture I show is learning. And as humans, we keep on learning from our mistakes, from our experience, and these algorithms keeps on learning as well if we train it correctly. So essentially, I mean, the most basic definition for me is it's the ability for computer technology to, at a fairly basic level still, emulate human intelligence and human thinking. The technology is not nearly as smart as most people think yet, but it's growing so quickly, and it'll be interesting to see where the future is going. And I hope that answered your question okay enough.
It did, and you've broken it down very beautifully and in a very simplistic manner. Because when people hear artificial intelligence, they actually have a mental block because, like you're saying, they're actually thinking of all these robots that they've seen in the Hollywood movies, and they just think, well, my brain is not going to go there. So thank you so much for breaking it down so beautifully, and for making us understand in very simple terms what artificial intelligence is. And also, I find that when you talk about AI, there's a lot of other elements that come into play. There's a whole talk about machine learning and natural language processing. What are these terminologies, and where are we encountering machine learning, for example, or where are we coming in contact with natural language processing in our everyday lives as human beings? So twofold definition and the application of what machine learning is, and natural language processing, and the application where we're encountering these elements.
Sure. It's such a good question, Sarah. Again, because this technology is greatly misunderstood. Even the term artificial intelligence is like a holistic term of a whole group of technologies. My mentor is Dr. Jacques Ludik in Cape Town from Cortex Logic, and he often speaks about the smart technology era, and I've adapted to use that term as well. More so than just AI or fourth industrial revolution. This is technology that is smart because it can learn, it to some extent can think, it can reason, and so forth. So machine learning is in a very basic way what the word suggests. It's the ability for machines to learn, but we as humans still have to train these models. So for instance, if you receive documents from a customer, then we can, through intelligent optical character recognition or computer vision, extract the text, typed or even handwritten text these days, from the document. If it's a purchase order, we know that you typically have top left the company's detail, contact details, registration number, and then you have the purchase order number, and then you've got the line items and the VAT and the total. So a lot of algorithms are trained to look for specific text in specific areas. But what if the document is not in the structure it expects? And that's where the models can be taught and can learn. In other words, now I see what looks like a customer address, but it's not top left, but top right. But because of the structure, because it's firstly name, street address, area, city, postal code, from my learnings and from my interaction as an algorithm, there's a good chance that this is the address and not the actual items that's being ordered. And the same applies to natural language understanding or chatbots or conversational AI. And that's machine learning plays a great role there as well. because we all have different ways of speaking. We've got different accents. We've got different ways and nuances around how we use our words. And these algorithms can adapt because they can learn that people in Johannesburg, for instance, typically speak in a way that's different from people in Cape Town, even if it's English. Especially so, of course, if it's different languages. So, you know, a lot of us will utilize this technology every day without knowing it. If you have a smartphone, everything almost in that phone is infused with some sort of AI technology. If we use Siri or Google Home or Alexa to give instructions through our voice, it recognizes it. You know, I mean, I've got a Google Home device, and my 8-year-old son will say, "Hey, Google, what is the weather like tomorrow?" And it will immediately, accurately, almost always accurately answer his question. The challenge for us in Africa is that we've got 2,000 to 3,000 different languages or dialects. And most of the training models, well, almost all of them are based on either American English, British English, or the major European languages, Portuguese, French, Spanish, and so forth. There's a lot of organizations in South Africa and in Africa that's working on building models, but from scratch, because it doesn't exist, to understand Xhosa and Zulu and other African languages. So we use this a lot. So even if you don't have a smartphone, if you have a bank, if you have a mobile phone provider, if you have an insurance provider, a lot of what they do to give you good service is infused with this technology, Sarah.
Thank you. So you bring up interesting conversation there when you talk about the fact that most of these technologies are actually created like in the Western world, you know, Silicon Valley, that actually has no understanding of the context of probably the people living in Africa, and the language issues come at play. As a society, what do we need to do in order for us as a people group in Africa to be able to participate in this new phenomena, so that we're not just waiting for other people to create solutions for us that are very exclusive, that excludes us, who we are as a people, our viewpoints, and even the language, you know, like you said. What do we need to do as a people group, as society, to get onto the bandwagon to create solutions that speak to us as a people?
It's an incredibly important question, Sarah, because on the one hand, I would say let's leverage what we can from Northern American or European or Middle Eastern or Chinese platforms. Let's not recreate what is already there, but let's use them, but adapt them. And if we need to create from scratch. So, you know, so we've just spoken about language, the fact that almost all African languages, the data sets to train these models don't exist. So we need to create it from scratch. Even image recognition, if we think of things like breast cancer scans, lung scans, prostate scans, and other medical imagery, you know, yes, we can use the data sets from America, for instance. They're most likely 80 or 90% accurate. But we've got unique medical conditions in Africa and in different areas of Africa for which we have to create our own imagery data set. So to answer your question, is as Africans, we need to do this ourselves. It's all about funding, which is a problem sometimes. It's about regulation, which is still a big problem, especially in South Africa. It is about skills, because the problem is once, and I often, especially in rural areas, meet some of the smartest kids I've ever met. If we upskill them, the chance for them to go to America or to go to Europe because of the money they can earn is massive. How do we keep the skills? Firstly, how do we create it? How do we keep the skills here? How do we give them a good career and a good future? How do we get governmental and societal and business support to make sure that the funding and the opportunities are there for these wonderfully smart young people on our continent? But you know, so much more I can say. The bottom line is we cannot wait for the West. We cannot rely on them. Let's use what they've created. And there are a lot of Western organizations that are entrenched in Africa helping us. So God bless them. But we also have to take the reins ourselves and not just rely on people outside of Africa to create this technology to help us in the future of our children, really.
Absolutely, and well said. I absolutely agree with that perspective. The biggest question that is on people's minds when they hear about artificial intelligence is whether artificial intelligence is going to take over, the world, and if also, more importantly, if AI is actually going to take away people's jobs. What's your viewpoint on that?
Again, I think if you ask most people about robots or AI, that's most likely the impression. Again, Hollywood, thank you very much. Evil robots, Terminator robots taking
Yes.
over, which is these days not that inaccurate, because AI is being weaponized. It is the intelligence behind drones to make kill decisions is there. As an example, you would typically want a drone that, say, maybe by facial recognition, identify a potential enemy or terrorist, to send that data to a field commander in the army so that the human can make the kill decision. But we've seen evidence in Russia and, for instance, in the Ukraine battle or the war there. We've seen evidence in China, and I'm quite sure if we dig deep enough, we'll see it with the American armed forces, that the kill decision has been autonomized to a large extent. Now, that's a massive ethical thing. And yes, when humans shoot, we miss. And when you need to shoot somebody who wants to kill you, you want to kill them. But what if the facial recognition says, yes, this is a terrorist, but he or she walks with a 3-year-old child in their hand down the street? Can we train the models to recognize that? Will that ethical decision of that's a human life? Because remember, again, the technology is ambivalent; it's neutral, So that's kind of on the scary side, the weaponization, the drone side. Regarding job displacements, what I find is that, because there's two sides of the argument, most people, and both sides have a point. Most people will say, if you look at the so-called industrial revolutions, from steam, water and steam, through to mechanization, to electricity, to the computer age, to the smart technology age, there was always initially a great number of jobs that were lost. Because now, if you were a horse cart driver, you had to learn to become a steam train driver, as an example. At the end of every previous industrial revolution, the net job gains were a lot more positive, even though initially a lot of people lost their jobs. So a lot of people refer to that and say, listen, we're going to create so many more jobs through this technology. We're going to create new roles that don't even exist today. And that is not incorrect. I think that's correct. But there's also another side of the coin, because for the first time in our history, we are not able to upskill people fast enough because the technology is changing so quickly. The challenge with secondary schools, or especially tertiary education, colleges, or especially universities, is at the end of your third or fourth year of studies, the world has already changed so quickly that there could be a chance that you are already irrelevant. Now, industries like healthcare and looking after people will always be relevant, even though there's a lot of automation there. If you're a bricklayer or a plumber, you'll most likely always have a job. But the so-called knowledge work, doctors, chartered accountants, consultants, etc., a lot of what we do is already automatable. So what do we do to ensure that we upskill ourselves and our colleagues, not once every now and then, constantly? Because, my father had the same job for 30 years and then went on pension. I think most of our parents, their generation, that's how they worked and lived. Where we, and especially those coming after us, will have 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 different careers in our lifespan. That's the thing. The thing I do when I speak to corporates or to people is just don't be waiting, hoping something might happen. You have to take, if you can, control of your career. You have to read books, you have to read blogs, you have to upskill yourself, you have to understand this technology, not fearing it. But inevitably, Sarah, as we automate job functions, we might lose a lot of people. And especially here in South Africa, and it's most likely true for a lot of developing countries. You know, I don't know the exact stats, but every wage earner looks after 8 or 9 or 10 other extended family members. So if you say we're going to cut 100 jobs, that's 1,000 people or more that you're impacting there. So and I'm almost done with answering your question, because this topic we can go forever because it's so important. It's
I
an
love
ethical
it. I love
and a
it.
philosophical
I love it.
conversation. You know, so what I often say, look, because we also don't live in la la land. If you run a business, there's shareholder pressure. You need to make profit. You need to grow. Every little percentage of extra market share counts. But why can't we figure out ways to do both, grow a very profitable business and really look well after our people? Even if we don't have the answers, as long as we grapple with it, that's the important thing. But the whole job displacement thing and the creation of a potential useless class, as Yuval Noah Harari speaks about in *Sapiens* in his book, that is going to be the future of our children. If we don't now already work to make sure that that doesn't happen. I most likely have more questions than answers for you and for your viewers, but we have to think and grapple with this, Sarah.
You bring very, very important aspects to the conversation. And I think this is a conversation that should really be on the table, especially when we look at the African context. Like you're saying, if a lot of jobs are automated without really thinking of the people and taking care of the people, yes, the bottom line is going to look healthy in terms of organizations. But what happens to these people who are looking after 10 people, who are the main breadwinners of, households where there are 8 people in that family, sometimes even 15 people? What do we do, as society? I'm so glad that you bring that to the fore, because one of the solutions that we offer as a business is robotic process automation. And as you will know, robotic process automation cuts costs and it brings efficiency. So a lot of companies are very sought out on that, and that is almost like the drive that they're going for. But when we do the change management process, that's the conversation that we bring to the table as well. We keep saying you cannot just be driven by just the cutting of costs, by removing head counts. You need to have the human heart to think about what's going to happen to these people who are being replaced by this software. What are you doing as a business to ensure that people continue earning a living? And really, I think that is really a conversation that, needs to be happening on a daily basis for business leaders to actually even shift their thinking, right? There's this whole mindset of digital first, is it digital first? Is it people first? Conversation. The humanness is what we need to be focusing on.
If I may comment on that, Sarah.
Yes, please.
Look, it should always be people first, because there's things that we as humans can do that technology can't do yet. There's things that the robots or the algorithms can do that we can't do and most likely don't want to do. So the brain dead, repetitive, administrative kind of reporting stuff, I mean, who wants to do that in any case? Let the bots do it, because the bots are accurate or very accurate. They don't strike, they don't go and leave, they don't join unions. But even in the case you mentioned of RPA, or robotic process automation, people don't use it for what it is made for. People try and drive their whole digitization strategy in RPA, and then it fails. Use the bots for the tasks that it's good at. But when it comes to problem solving, understanding your customer, empathy, thinking, the bots can't do that. So I often speak about take the bot out of the human. Set us free to do what we're good at as humans. The example I use is, if tomorrow morning I wake up and all the money out of my bank account is gone, I don't want to speak to a chatbot. I don't want to speak to a call center agent. I want to go to the branch. I want to stand there until the branch manager, and then I want to grab him or her by the neck and say, sort this out, Healthcare is even
Yeah.
more important. I mean, if I need emergency medical care for my son because he's got a very high fever, I
Mm,
don't want an automated
mm,
decisioning system with bias in the data to decide whenever we can go and see a doctor. So,
mm,
and then maybe just to add on that, the other example I often use is if you have 100 people in your business, yes,
mm,
through automation, dashboards, efficiencies, etc., you can most likely um, have 80 people do the work that the 100 is doing now. The
mm,
question I ask customers is, don't you anticipate growing? So let's turn it around from
mm,
a getting rid of people point of view to, rather
mm,
than increase from 100 to 150 in a year or two through automation
mm,
and efficiency, let the 100 do what the 150 would have done. That's the business case, not the
mm,
other one where we just cut jobs. But as long as people grapple with it, for me, my personal view, and I've lost some business on this, is if my
mm,
client's main objective is headcount cuts, I walk away if
mm,
I can't convince them otherwise, because it's ethically wrong and it's a stupid business
mm,
decision, you know,
mm,
and I will
mm.
never compromise on that ever, you know.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think, that goes for all of us, right? The people who are in this business, we need to be the mouthpiece. And I love that principledness where you say, if you're going to cut costs, if you're going to cut costs by laying off people, I'm not taking the business. And I think a lot of us need to have that mindset so we can actually force business to continue being ethical and taking on responsibility, much as they are taking on these new smart technologies that are bringing efficiency in the organization.
True, very true.
Yeah. So then I would like us to dive into use cases. I know we've touched on AI use cases here and there as we've been conversing, but I just want us to sort of bring this conversation in a very focused manner. So as an everyday person, where am I encountering artificial intelligence? Which places, as, a normal everyday person that is just doing normal, ordinary things on a daily basis, where am I encountering AI?
Mm. Yeah, look, and in some areas of the world, the answer might be different. But
Mm,
firstly, if you're a mobile phone user, you will encounter it without knowing it, because our mobile phone providers have more data on us than any other service provider. Because even our banks, who are harvesting a lot of data on us, they don't know real time exactly where we are, in the proximity of who else we are, whom we associated with,
mm,
what kind of applications we access on our phone. So the mobile phone providers have between 500 and 1,000 data points on us. So the trick is, are they using it ethically? And one would like to think so. But also, are they using that
mm,
massive amount of data on you to provide you better service? And as I said, banking, financial
mm,
services is another area, even though they don't have all the data like mobile phone providers. So banking, financial services, telecoms, and there are some other areas, healthcare potentially, and others. But it's about your service providers or your government, and especially, hopefully, if it's used for your benefit, to take your data. And that one of the things that AI kind of technology should do is to see patterns in your data that humans can't
mm,
see, and to answer
mm,
questions that humans might not have asked. There's a lot of companies out there that's selling a kind of an AI product. It says AI in the box
mm,
because it's sexy and they hope customers will buy it. But I often say, if it's not able to learn, if it's not able to show you
mm,
patterns you did not ask for, if it's not able to work in
mm,
some sense autonomously, it's most likely not AI. It could just be automation. So how do you segment your customers? How do you see? And this is where predictive analytics and especially behavioral predictive analytics come in. It's one thing
mm,
to look at your data set and say, we can see over the last quarter, 5% of our customers in a certain area left us. But there's nothing you can do
mm,
about it at this stage. But predictive analytics says it seems like, if looking at the data, that 5% of our customers in that area might leave us. So it could be, if you're a telco company, that the the signal strength in that area is very bad. They might go from a Vodacom to an MTN or the other way around, as an example. If you're a retailer, you know, why are people not buying the products they used to buy, especially in this time of the year? Because people, for instance, now are buying more summer's clothing than winter's clothing. But it's predicting what customers will do and acting on it before it happens. That's really where these data points that's being analyzed by these algorithms should benefit a vendor, not a provider, to serve us better. So we all are exposed to this technology, but Sarah, I think a lot of our banks, even some of our telcos, some of our other companies are still scratching the surface and not utilizing this technology as well as they could. It could be regulatory reasons, privacy reasons, but it will also be that they're approaching this technology and the implementation of this technology in a way that is often unsuccessful, and that happens a lot more than it being successful, you know, in my experience.
And why do you think it is so? Why do most of these automations and artificial intelligence implementations fail in organizations?
No. If I may say tongue in cheek, you can't automate human nature. You can't automate toxic culture or bad leadership. You can't automate stupidity. And you can't automate human experience. So the trick is automate the right things for the right reasons in the right way. Firstly, it should be driven from the top, from the executives, not from some dark corner in the IT department. Yes, we need the technology team to help and support. But if it doesn't serve a very clearly defined business purpose, why do it? Don't just play with the technology because it's a nice new tool. I've solved more business problems with Excel than with AI over the last 5 years. Because if people don't understand their jobs, if they fear for their jobs, if they hate the culture they work in, and so forth, then you can't use AI or any technology for that. You know, so I often tell my customers, firstly, do you at the executive level understand what this technology is going to do to your business? You don't have to become AI experts, but you might have to reskill half your workforce. Your whole organizational design might change, the whole culture, the whole way you attract new talent, the kind of decisioning that you have, where you might have a kind of a command and control. The big boss has the final word. Where if you attract new young talent, then it has to be a lot more collaborative, or they will stay for one day and they'll be gone. So those are the reasons we are not doing it for the right reason in the right way. And also start small, because if you start small, you can fail fast, you can learn. And the best change management is if somebody in some department, well, we work virtually still, many of us, but if you speak to a colleague, or you're at the water cooler or the coffee area, and you say, they brought in RPA or automation or AI, and I'm actually loving my job because there's so many stupid things I don't have to do anymore. And word starts spreading. That's the best change. So that I tell my customers, let's do it for the right reason. Let's use the technology you already have, because it might already be sufficient, even if it's not AI. Take people on the journey. Make sure you are trying to achieve your business aims and not just automate stuff for automating. And it sounds so common sense, and it is, but these are some of the major reasons, maybe simplified, Sarah, why a lot of these initiatives fail, I think, you know?
Again, for me, it brings back, the conversation of just the humanness, what is the driving force, and also just thinking about, what impact it will have on your people. And you speak about culture, it's people having that mindset that all these elements will actually contribute to the success. If the culture is not going well in an organization, just throwing technology at that is not going to, solve the problems. So it's having that holistic view. And I love that, you touch on that. So then how can organizations use AI for business advantage, or as a competitive edge for their business?
There are so many use cases across the industry, Sarah. But I would, and look, I've been a consultant all my life, and I'm still consulting to some businesses. One of the first things I'll tell them is don't just listen to the consultants. You make sure
Yes.
you first you have a variety of views, and don't let the people who help you build your automation or AI strategy be the same people who sell you the technology and the licensing, because you can never rely on their independence. So
Yeah.
procure it correctly, work with the right vendors in the right way, build it in-house as much as you can, use the outside vendors to maybe help you leapfrog or fast track it. You might actually want to outsource the whole thing, but make a smart business decision. If your customers don't experience better service, then why do this? We often talk about the voice of the customer, but we can automate everything in the world. If your average customer out there don't see a benefit, don't see you resolve their problems quicker, because imagine you can contact your customer saying, it seems like you might have this problem. Let's fix it before you have it, rather than them having the problem, being frustrated, waiting forever for your call center to help them. So that's really the thing, is forget about what we call the technology, forget what technology it is. What will make you gain market share, serve your customers, increase revenue from a back office point of view, decrease your operational costs, make people work faster, more efficient. Then only do you think, is it AI, is it cloud, is it just dashboards, is it BI? Don't start with there's that saying, and I always mess it up because English is not my first language, but you've got a hammer and we're looking for a nail to hit or something like that. So we've got AI and we're going to find the problem to fix with it. That's where it goes wrong. So it's a common sense, pragmatic approach. Secondary, it is about which technologies and platforms we use. So if you especially, and to maybe just to conclude and to answer your question, Sarah, especially if you have a lot of data on customers, and if you have customers who regularly interact with you through a mobile app, a digital channel or something, because no team of humans will be able to understand and analyze all that data, terabytes of data. That's where the algorithms come in to help you predict churn, predict needs that customers might have, that even the customers might not know at the moment, based on behavioral algorithms and predictive analytics. Look at market conditions, look at what your competitors are doing. Again, can these algorithms give you answers to questions based on big data sets, even questions you didn't think of asking it? That's where this technology can help business leaders. But there's a lot of foundational steps to put in place to make sure you can handle the power of this technology. And that's that whole journey to get there. Don't plug it in and switch it on. It'll destroy your business, most likely. But it's like nuclear power in a certain way. You can bomb a city or you can give power to a city, So be pragmatic, make sure you know what you want to achieve. And from there, you can build your technology roadmap.
Absolutely. And beautifully, beautifully said. So the stats are showing that 70% of the business executives actually do not understand this technology. And for the most part, most businesses have actually just relegated this function to the IT department. Like, they are the tech smarties, let them run with it. But we know that AI is actually going to transform businesses and literally the way processes are done. What should executives be doing to know more about this new technology and the smart technologies that are coming on the market?
Sarah, that number 70%, I think, is applicable globally, but especially here in South Africa. It might even be more. Be it as it may, the point is that most senior executives don't understand this technology at all. And again, like I said earlier, you don't have to become an expert or a programmer or a Python engineer or a quant, but at least start with understanding the lingo. Because I had a CIO from a bank 2 weeks ago who said to me that his mandate is to AI a third of his business. Now, even that, I don't quite know what that means. And then after saying he needs to AI a third of his business, he asked me how many RPA bots does he need to buy? And I thought, we're talking about two fundamentally different kind of things. And yes, there are some overlaps and relationships, but RPA and AI are not the same thing at all. And
Yeah.
so often what I will do when I deal with customers is I will just make sure we compare apples with apples, because we read these terms in Forrester, Gartner reports, we go to webinars, we go to conferences, and we just throw edge, cloud, quantum computing, we throw it around. And then I
Yeah.
ask people, it's like, what actually do you mean with that? And I'm not saying give me an
Yes.
academic, but are you automating, or are you using predictive analytics, or what? That's the first thing I often do is just make sure we are talking about the same thing. Even if we agree to disagree on what we call it, let's just make sure we're not talking about two different things. So what execs should do, and this is where executive education plays a big role, is constant upskilling. Read books, watch webinars, get outside people in to consult with you or to just give you a talk or review. And I'm doing quite a lot of that at the moment, where I speak with senior executives from a neutral point of view. I mean, I'm a one-man show. I don't have a big consulting firm behind me and try and actually sneak in there and sell a 20 million rand deal or something. And I've got nothing to lose. I can just tell them what I think, and if they don't like it and never invite me back again, sorry, that's one of those things, But if we work for a big consultancy, you can't do that.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
problem, Sarah, however, with a lot of executive education providers, especially from a university point of view, is that these academics and professors who are, and I work with many of them, they are exceptionally smart people and lovely people, most of them. They are very good at teaching the textbook. But how many of them have actually implemented this technology? Because sometimes teaching executives, or your students for that matter, about your own failures, where you've seen it gone wrong, what they should not do, what you've done, because they can Google most of these things. They don't need a textbook. That's the problem. So we need a lot more executive education, but a lot of organizations who provide executive education don't have real world experience of this technology. So again, you've got no excuse not to know what your IT department talks about, understand some of the basic lingo, cloud, edge, etc. Get some different external views, and diversity is a topic I'd love for us to speak about as well. I'm sure we're gonna and make smart business decisions based on the technology and not the other way around. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the things that we do here at CompuConnect Education is actually executive education to business leaders. And the big, discussion right now is about executives acquiring a digital mindset. Because a lot of people who are in these decision-making positions really are not digital natives, okay? All these technologies have been sprung up on us as we've been on the job and as we've been in the work environment. So none of us really even studied these technologies originally. But like you're saying, it's investing into learning so you can actually acquire that digital mindset. And like you rightly said, education has now also been very much democratized because information is everywhere, YouTube, blogs, free webinars. So it's just people making that decision to invest themselves into learning so that they can acquire a digital mindset to lead their organizations very well. Yeah.
It's a hunger for learning.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You wanted to say more? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, Shay, no problem. So no, it's about, there's that saying of you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. So if you're not, and people can have different interests, because you might work in legal, you might work in HR, you might work in supply chain. So we will have different interests in how to apply this technology, and that's good. But if you're not hungry to learn, if you're not willing to spend an hour a week reading a book, or now and then attending a conference, then, and essentially, if you're too busy or too lazy, and the company can pay for all your training, give you all the Udemy courses in the world, it's still not going to make you learn if you're not hungry to learn. That you can't automate either. You can't slap people around until they want to learn, So that's the other thing I say to executives: at least be hungry to learn, be excited about this topic, So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add, Sarah.
Great point. Great point. So then let's look at why we're not seeing a lot of companies leveraging these smart technologies. We know the benefits that come with using smart technologies. And yet at the same time, we're not seeing a lot of companies really tap into these technologies. Why do you think it is so?
Yeah. Look, I think I heard the other day somebody said that after the 2 years of COVID that we've been through, that a lot of organizations had to go through a reluctant digitization where they've been dragging their feet for years. And now, because everyone was working from home and it's Zoom calls, and we needed to make sure the security to access the systems from laptops, etc., was robust. But look, I think in the South African market, all your very big corporate firms are already utilizing this technology. The rate of success differs. So some are really screwing it up, some are only starting out. There are some companies in South Africa that have really done some good work with this technology. I think it's more in your kind of mid and smaller tier business markets. It's definitely a problem in your governmental functions, where, I read the other day that up to 60% of government workers in South Africa are computer illiterate. So think of the services government can give through municipalities, electricity supply, a hot topic, healthcare, social grants, etc., by automating the right things in the right way, by upskilling people. So, yeah, I think corporates, because they are often a bit more fast moving, a bit more aggressive, there's maybe more money to invest in it. A lot of them are further down the road. Smaller companies and non-governmental, or for that matter, government, is where it's lacking. So, but it makes me so proud that there are some of the best AI companies in the world are in South Africa. A lot of them are startups, or in Africa for that matter, and some of them are like 6 people in a garage somewhere. But you must see the stuff they build. And we've got some of our big banks and big telcos and insurance companies and others already on this journey, but it is a constantly evolving journey. You can't just say, okay, we've automated our procure to pay function. Let's stop, because the technology changes, people's needs change. So that constant innovation is more of a problem, I think, than the initial project being a success, in my experience at least.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you can't talk about artificial intelligence without talking about the softer side of things. Your change management. We've spent quite a lot of time talking about the upskilling conversation. Do you just want to give some highlights when it comes to change management and artificial intelligence? What are your thoughts and what are your viewpoints on that?
Good question. And again, a reason why a lot of these initiatives fail, because the holistic approach is not there. And what I often do is I will draw two circles, an inner circle and an outer circle. And in the inner circle is your smart technologies, edge or IoT, cloud, all the stuff we've been speaking about. And often these initiatives are only focused on that, on the tech stacks, the platforms. The outer circle is the softer side, but the more important side. That is, how will it impact your people? Will you be doing it ethically? How do you upskill your people? How do you attract new talent? How do you change your organization? How do you make sure that you are aligned with regulation and with the laws of the country, and many other aspects? And those things are more difficult to fix than plugging in the AI and hoping it'll work. And those things, because they're not part of the priority of these projects, often is where these projects fail, or even if they're somewhat successful, they're not as successful as they could have been. So change management, because remember, this technology is fundamentally changing how we work. We have more and more digital assistants working with us. So now my team is not just me and 4 other people. It's now me, 4 other people, and 3 robots, software robots. A lot of companies onboard these robots with a staff or a contractor number because they want to measure their productivity and utilization. Yes, and it's not a sentient being and somebody I'm going to have a coffee with or a beer with after work, but I still, that change of how I interact with digital colleagues
Mm,
is, I think, because a lot of companies don't even know how to approach it. Yes, we do things that are important, like how to deal cross-gender, how to deal cross ethnicity, especially in South Africa, where we're a melting pot of people from different ethnicities. So those are important things, and we should continue with them. But we can't stop there because this robot is, in a way, another ethnicity, speaks another language.
mm,
So if we
mm,
don't get our people excited, if we can't give them a clear view of where this technology will take them, that's to their benefit. If we just want to automate the
mm,
nonsense out of everything, and again, because the people who drive these initiatives don't understand it. And also, Sarah, unfortunately,
mm,
often change management and similar initiatives are run by the HR department, who, in light of the
mm,
smart technology era, don't have the foggiest idea what they're doing because you
mm,
did it 15 years ago, or you have been doing it for 15 years. So even your human resources, human capital management, your legal department, they all need to think differently. You mentioned digital first, which is such a lovely way to speak about it. But how
mm.
do we bring change management in? Because what is change management is often we all go in to play golf, or we have some, sorry, I just want to kill this call
Sure.
because if it rings on my phone, it rings on my Mac as well, but it's gone now. Um,
Okay.
it's often a bit of a kumbaya session. We all get together, we've got some whiteboard sessions, we all have sticky notes, and those things are fun. But I personally, in my whole
Mm,
career, has never been through a properly executed change management initiative where the end result is the change you were hoping for. It's good that
mm.
I now know the names of your kids, and I know that you like golf and not
Yes.
soccer. But that doesn't
Yes.
mean anything. So that's the problem. So I think the role of and importance of change management in light of the smart technology era is even more important. Most practitioners doing what they've done 10 or 15 years ago are already
Mm,
irrelevant. And that's so we
mm.
can talk change management. How do we execute it? I think is a massive problem in a lot of organizations.
I know that's actually a very big topic, and you bring in quite a lot of important elements when it comes to change management. What are your recommendations? What do you think organizations need to do to be able to see success when it comes to change management?
Look at it holistically.
Mm,
If we don't know where we're going as an organization with this technology, then how do we design change management programs? If we just
mm,
dabble our feet in the water, automate a few things, see what happens, just check it out, how do you execute change management? If you have a very specific, well-defined strategy, even though it's not ever 100% perfect, but it's pretty much well thought out, if you understand the cultural and the societal impact of this technology, if you understand what it's going to do to your workforce from a potential job displacement point of view, upskilling point of view, if you have so start with that. What is that end picture looking like? And
mm,
then look at the plan to get your people there. It can't just be that we're going to introduce robots. Let's just have a fun few posters on the wall showing people how cute robots really are, and it's not Terminator from
mm,
Hollywood. That's not bad, but it's not even a start because it's like we're shooting against the wall, like we're throwing mud against the wall and see what sticks. Because how do you execute change management and cultural change unless there's a very predefined end goal? So that's what I
mm,
tell my customers. What will that end goal look like?
mm,
There's a human element, there's a technology element, there's a how you execute your business element. Then only
mm,
can you look at executing your change management. But like I've alluded to now, the people you have in-house might not be completely suited to execute that plan, and then you might have to look for some outside help to do that. But it's a
mm.
defined end goal. For me, that's the bedrock of a proper cultural change management plan, I think, Sarah.
I love that viewpoint. Um, Let's talk about upskilling. And I know we spent quite a lot of time talking about upskilling, but I also think it's an organization imperative as organizations embark on this journey of smart technologies. What would be your recommendation from the organization point of view? Obviously, we've talked about people skilling themselves, by taking up, courses, or just getting free courses that are online. But as an organization, how do we develop a cohesive strategy to upskill people so that when these smart technologies start taking up jobs that people did, like we said earlier on in our conversation, people still have a livelihood, or they'll have, professional growth. They'll grow into other areas of businesses or other areas of the career. What would you say to a CEO or a CIO who has people at heart, as they are implementing these technologies, and he's thinking about, or she's thinking about, the people who be displaced as a result? What do they need to do from the upskilling or reskilling of the people point of view?
So again, at the risk of repeating myself and making it sound oversimple, what is the end goal? Where do you think, even if you don't have the 5-year end goal, but in the next year, what will most likely happen in the way we work because we're automating, we're using smart technologies and the like? Because we can't just upskill people for the sake of upskilling them. So I was not able to write code and now I can, but maybe the company still doesn't need me. What is that? That's where workforce design, and again, the whole change management conversation comes in, is if we believe in the next year or two, the market demands, the trends in the market, what our competitors are doing, what our customers are looking for, and what technology can do, is going to take us to point X. What is the workforce we need? Almost, I wanted to say, if you could start at a clean slate, if you had no legacy systems, people who've been there for 20 years, etc., what would that ideal picture look like? And then map it to where you are now. Because again, if you don't know where you're taking the organization, what do we train people to do? Because that'll then also impact, do we still need 1,000 people? Do we not maybe need 50? Because, and sometimes job displacement, not often actually, job displacements is inevitable. As long as you have a big problem with it, as long as you grapple with it, as long as you do your best to try and retain people. But I mean, I don't want to sound oblivious to the fact that as we use technology, a lot of people might and most likely will end off without jobs. Many of them toward the latter part of their career, because now where do they find a new job? How do they can't go back to college, university, or so? They often have kids that's at college or university themselves. But what is that end picture? And then because that's again the upskilling and the change plan is from point A to point X. What are the pillars to get us there? And we have to upskill our people in line with this plan, not just because what often happens is a technology or sort of the HR department might have R1 million left at the end of the budget cycle, and if they don't use it, they're going to lose it. Now they just train people in, I don't know, baking cake, making jelly, some coding. So just spend the money, So, so that's you have to think a lot smarter about how are we going to spend it, what money are we going to need, what are we going to train people to do. Always think of the outcome, the end picture first before you build the plan to get them there. Don't just do a knee-jerk reaction only for this year. There's 5 courses that we need to buy, otherwise we're going to lose our budget. We can't do it like that, and it often, or almost rather, in my experience, happens like that. It's funny, but it happens.
No, you're very right, and I love the fact that you bringing that whole concept of being deliberate. Okay, people need to have a plan in terms of looking at what jobs probably be replaced, and design a proper training program or reskilling program for the people, so that like you're saying, people are not just doing things on the fly, or because we've got a budget that has remained, let's throw it on training. There's got to be that deliberate consciousness where you're actually investing in people to acquire new skills that are needed for the now and for the future.
True. Very true. And it's complex, but it can be done.
That's why I use the word deliberateness. People have to be yeah, it's a whole conscious issue, and just being deliberate. I would now love us, as we conclude our conversation, to speak about a topic that is so dear to my heart, the topic of diversity and inclusion. We spoke a lot about all these solutions that are being created and excluding a lot of people. And sometimes, like I keep saying, it's not, the exclusion is not intentional. It's because people are supposed to give input, are not there to give input that brings a balanced viewpoint. What do you think we need to be doing as organizations, as society, to be able to be more inclusive, to just bring in diverse people from diverse backgrounds to be able to participate in the creation of these solutions? And B, I also wanted to just talk about what the effects are when we do not have people from diverse backgrounds participating in this industry.
Yeah, we've talked about so many important things today. Sarah, this is maybe the most important
Yes,
because people misunderstand diversity. I think diversity includes, yes, gender diversity, ethnicity diversity, religious diversity, diversity from a geographical location point of view, but it also includes diversity from ideas and a thinking point of view. And I think a lot of executives will say our target is to have 5% more women on our board at the end of this year, and then they hope to just get there and tick the box. Or 10% more people of African descent in our senior management structure, and they hope to get there and tick the box. It talks about leadership maturity. Because we are only as good as the people we surround ourselves with. If you are narcissistic and self-involved and psychopathic, which I think most executives are, because I don't know how else you get to the top of a big organization, unfortunately, unless you're a little bit messed up in your head. No, that's maybe more a joke, although I don't know if it's a joke. I wonder, But look, there's a reason why some people get to the top, and it's often not a good reason, although there are examples of really good leaders getting to the top. And there are many studies on this. There's a great book called Why Are So Many Men Horrible Leaders? I think that's the title. It's written by a man, and he talks about the narcissism, about the role that testosterone plays and male leadership and the like, the competitiveness and all of that. Side topic, but very interesting. But firstly, if your fundamental leadership style is not, I want as many diverse views as I can, then no government legislation, Black economic empowerment, X amount of women on the board, nothing is going to fix it. That's a big problem. We all have biases as humans. And a lot of it we don't even know about. And often we don't mean it in a bad way at all. We just don't even know because we live in our own bubbles, even in a globalized world, even in these days where a lot of us just for years have dealt with colleagues, equal and smarter colleagues than us who are female or from a different country or color. So for a lot of people that I know, and including myself, that for years has not been an issue. But and sometimes my friend from Soweto or from Zambia will tell me something that I think often, I've never thought about it like that because I've never lived there. I've never seen what the situations people live in, the cultural concepts that we grow up in, our own mythologies so one of the key things, especially with this technology, Sarah, is because we've heard about the biases in the data sets. Just a quick example, maybe one of the best examples is facial recognition. And we've seen in a year or two ago that companies like IBM and others have rolled back on that technology. There were a lot of false arrests in the so-called black, oh my God, what was it called? Movement in America. I spoke about it this morning.
Black Lives Matter?
Yes,
Not
yes,
the Black
yes.
Lives Matter, yes.
True. And others where false arrests were made because the algorithm will pick up that
Mm,
somebody's face is that of a known criminal. But we now know that facial recognition struggles with female and darker skinned faces. And what I
mm,
often say, a bit of tongue in cheek, is the reason is that a bunch of white guys in Silicon Valley built the platforms. They might not have meant it in a bad way, but we naturally build in
mm,
biases in all our work. So what I tell
mm,
customers is make sure that and it doesn't have to be a big team, but make sure that the core team who
mm,
works on this smart technology are different genders. It's important.
mhm,
Ethnicities, if possible, different
mhm,
parts of the world representative, different age groups, different disciplines, HR, legal, and others. Just make sure that there are as many different views and not just a bunch of techies, bunch of
mm,
technologists. That's
mm,
because there will always be things that where we won't see the whole picture, and we
mm,
might really mean well, but that's where a colleague who is a friend can say to us, "But you don't see. Remember that. This way you want to build the system will affect women under 15, as an example. Let me tell you why.
mm,
Because in my community, I've seen it. That is important. But maybe to summarize it, if it doesn't start at the top, if the cultural construct driven from the top is not truly inclusive, never mind what the
mm,
law says, never mind what their brochures say, because everyone say they're inclusive. Very few mean it.
mm,
Unless that is there, we won't have the teams
mm,
to build this technology to serve everyone as it should. So very
mm.
philosophical. We can go on forever, but I need to go get some whiskey in the kitchen and then we can keep on going. But it's important.
Yeah. No, you bring very important point, and I love that whole concept of involving people from different departments, because I find that people are running these things are just IT people or the IT team. So to bring in the HR, to bring in the marketing people, to tap into that kind of thinking, then brings a whole different perspective to the kind of solutions that you are creating as a team. So yeah, I love that. Let's explore from the society point of view, because I believe that's where the problem starts. As a society, what do we need to be doing to create inclusivity? So we've spoken about what organizations need to be doing. What about society? What are your views on that?
Mm, that's a big topic because it's so much bigger than technology per se.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
Look, I think, even in South Africa, as I said, we're this melting pot of cultures, but a lot of people on all sides of the cultural divide are still living in smaller communities, often don't have a lot of interaction with people of other culture groups, or if they do, it's often negative interaction for very legitimate reasons sometimes. I think
Mm,
exposure plays a big role. Unless you have friends and colleagues from different genders and culture groups that you see as equals, if you see a certain ethnicity as they are the farm workers and I'm the farm owner, then it's going to be difficult to change.
mm,
We, what's interesting I mean, if I take South Africa, we've been through all these years now post the end of apartheid. We,
mm,
we've, there's no more reason to, even though you might not have many friends of a different ethnicity just because of the town you live in, as an example, but
mm,
given technology and exposure to information, we should not be where we were in our thinking, many people, where we were 30 years
mm,
ago. The problem with the access to information and technology is that it's not necessarily good information and technology. We've
yeah.
seen it, I mean, with the whole COVID pandemic and 5G causing COVID and don't get an injection, all
Mm,
the fake news,
yeah.
post-truth. The problem is that even though we have access at our fingertips to all the information humanity has ever created, which should set us free, I think this technology is unfortunately making us more isolated in our bubbles, mistrusting each other. That is
Mm,
a huge
mm,
concern for our future, but we already see it. So, look, it comes down, maybe to
mm,
conclude, Sarah, to its individual choices. If you're at least
mm,
open to experiencing other people's culture, I'm not saying move in with them, spend time with
mm,
them every Saturday. At least be open, because
mm,
there's such That's what I love about this country. There's such beauty in the different people. You really are
Mm,
making yourself poor by not having friends of
mm,
different cultures. Because there's such joy
mm,
in experiencing how they eat and dance and do things, and their weddings are weird
mm,
because I've never been to a wedding like that.
mm,
So you're robbing yourself and you're robbing your children by not being fully immersed in our society, unfortunately, and that's a personal
mm.
choice, I think.
Absolutely,
Big topic.
absolutely. But yeah, no, it is a big topic. But I also think, it's especially like the executives, just that whole deliberateness of, pulling in people are excluded. If you are in a place of influence and you are able to pull in or allocate people into these spaces that otherwise they would not be able to function, to actually expose them, like you said, or just, give them that opportunity to be able to
Mm.
work with, these new technologies, even if they're not as qualified as we would love them to be, taking a chance on people,
Oh, yes.
so one of the things that we've done as an organization for us, probably because I'm a woman and I don't see a lot of women in the tech industry, is we've
Mm.
just invested ourselves and our resources into skilling young girls from the age of 10,
Mm.
teaching them tech skills, robotics and coding from as young as 10, and also being deliberate about including those kids from the rural areas. So being able to offer a solution that speaks to a child's mother tongue is one of the things that I thought, as a person who's in tech, this is the contribution that I can make to society to make the industry more inclusive. So my view is that we all need to be doing our part,
Oh,
and
yes.
making that contribution.
So true. Oh, I love this conversation, Sarah. It's so important stuff, massive stuff we're talking about. But we have to talk
Mm,
about it. That's the point. Even if we don't
yes,
always know what the answers are, we have to grapple, work together. That's again where
true.
diversity comes in, because sometimes the answers to some of these complex issues lies in the heads of other people. And it could be the
Yes.
12-year-old girl somewhere in a rural area who've already thought through it, and we don't know if we don't give her a chance.
Mm, mm.
I feel alive after this chat. Wow.
Oh, fantastic. It's been such a wonderful,
Thank
wonderful
you.
conversation. I've really enjoyed myself, and I've learned a lot as well. Thank you so much for
Yes,
breaking it
same.
down, just to, ordinary language that everybody can understand. And thank you so much for making time to come
Oh,
and
thank
just
you for
give
the
so much
invite.
of yourself to us.
Oh, Sarah, anytime there's more people that I know that would love to speak with you, I'm going to connect you with them. I'd love to promote and share this video when it's ready, but please keep on doing the good work, please. And we are many who will want to support and encourage you, Sarah.
I really appreciate that. Hey, I really, really appreciate that positive feedback. Thank you so much. Um, so have a beautiful, beautiful day. And all the best with all your other upcoming meetings.
Thank you, Sarah. And same with you. I look forward to our next chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.